Hello, everybody, and welcome to 38 Weeks to Go, your weekly podcast about fantasy football. I am your host, Nash, and let's get into it. The blank game week is done. How was game week 31 for you? Did you have a free hit? Did you use it? The average of the game week was 38, which to me is an indicator that many people have previously used their free hit. How did you do? Did you captain Bruno or did you captain Ekitike? As you all know by now, Manchester City defeated Arsenal. And to all the Arsenal fans listening, I'm so sorry. At least you have other things to fight for, and at least the title looks sewn up. For the City fans, congratulations. I honestly thought it would be 2-0 the other way around. I thought Arsenal were going to win, but I was wrong. And then I kept wondering now, looking at the fixtures of the weekend, because I wanted to wonder which games would have been interesting as a EFP. I mean, what's this called? The Small Cup Championship final. And I was like, would a Bournemouth versus Man U have been good in a 2-2? Or maybe Brighton, Liverpool 2-1. That would have been a good game. Or maybe Everton, Chelsea 3-0. Or maybe Newcastle in the final again to defend it and then they lose 2-1 to Sunderland in a derby. That would have been fancy. Or Spurs losing 3-0 to Nottingham Forest. This game week was a bit odd for me because there were a lot of unexpected things. Ekitike getting injured in the first 8 minutes, Hale scoring an own goal, Liverpool losing to Brighton, Fulham conceding, Chelsea being absolutely hammered, Thiago refusing to score but somehow getting defensive contribution points, Newcastle losing, so no clean sheet, West Ham being unable to threaten Aston Villa even though they were trash for the last few games, and then Spurs just continued to be Spurs. So starting at the top, you have Bruno. Bruno really came in for us. I hope by now you've all realized that Bruno is the man to have in your team, and I hope you captained him because he was a great captain to have. Now for Bournemouth, it seemed like Christie and Krupi Jr. were the people to have. Who would have known? Trufa and Evan Nilsson had the assists, while Bruno Fernandes and Cunha had the assists for Man United. Bruno scored one, and Hill had the other. If you are a wise person and you had Welbeck, well done to you. Salah and Alisson were injured, and Liverpool looked much weaker. Kirkers, I don't even know how. I guess they say keep running. The play is not dead until it's dead, and he kept moving because he had no business scoring that goal. Welbeck scored 2 goals. Brighton were the better team. They won. Fulham had to come back from behind. Thankfully, Wilson and Raul Jimenez showed up. Leeds and Brentford was goalless. Everton, this game really surprised me. Dijk and Beto scoring 2 goals. Beto played like he was prime. I don't even know. Is it Romario? 1-touch goals. He was just in the right position, and then he just did what needed to be done. This was very surprising to me, and I'm really happy that I didn't have any Chelsea players in my team. Newcastle started off strong and then somehow just lost the game. They just lost it. That's what it feels like. It feels like they were the better team, but they just lost the game. On the Villa side, they just seemed like the strong Villa that was challenging for the title some few months ago. And Spurs started the game, to be fair to them. First half was great. They were good. Second half, they were a disaster. It's almost like they thought a game is 45 minutes. When it comes to the Man U match, I was really hoping for Sesko to put on a show in some form or one way or another, I guess. But he didn't. Mbumo has been out. He's been out of form for a while now. So it seems like now it's just Bruno and Cunha. And with Bournemouth, we know they've been struggling to score, but they've been difficult to beat. I think this makes it 4 or 5 games in a row that they haven't lost. With Liverpool, there's no need to talk about Salah. We know he's been down and he also was unavailable. And Brighton have been unpredictable. So people were expecting a Liverpool win, hopefully with a clean sheet, but that did not happen. Fulham did what they were supposed to do, except maybe keep a clean sheet. Chelsea were the real downfall, the real disappointment. If people had hung their hat on like a Palma or Pedro / Cucurella type thing, they were truly disappointed. I was disappointed too because I had Pickford on my bench. Nothing happened in the Leeds Brentford game. So if you are hoping for Dominic Calvert-Lewin or some midfield magical performance from either Damsgaard and them, you were let down. Gordon in the Newcastle game was great, and he did what was expected of him. In the Sunderland game, Talby and Bobby were the ones who did the business along with Diarra. So if you had them, you did well. If you were like me and you were smart, or rather pretending to be smart, and you brought in Bowen because he's been doing well of late, boy, were we disappointed. And then Watkins finally decides to score. Why? At least Rodgers had an assist. I had him. I thought he would do something, and he did. But if you had West Ham players who were banking on TL like I did in the Newcastle game, especially when he scored the goal which was disallowed, was so painful. It also hurt. It was painful. And then Spurs just did Spurs things. I'm just happy I banked on Nottingham Forest defense because I thought that's how it would go. With fewer fixtures and not exactly predictable performances, I can see how people didn't do as well as I would have liked. So when it comes to performers this weekend, goalkeepers, Kelleher, 9 points. Pickford and Sells, 7. Martinez and Darlow, 6. When it comes to defenders, Nico Williams, 15. He did well. The assists were really beautiful. Bijol from Leeds, 11. Pinnock, 10. Milenkovic, 9. Keane and Murillo, 8. When it comes to midfield, King, 13, along with Bruno Fernandes. McGinn, 10. Dijk and Gordon, 10. And those are the top 5 midfield performers. And when it comes to strikers, the top performer this week was Beto, who had 16. Welbeck had 12. Watkins had 9. Jesus and Brobbey had 8. And so you can hear by those results that it was a bit of a tough scoring week. So let me start with some stats generated from the game week. Now I'm just going to include Arsenal because, why not? Arsenal's defeat to Man City was their first by a margin of 2 or more goals in 410 days when they were beaten by Newcastle in a League Cup in February 2025. They have been great. Manchester City now boast 15 wins at the new Wembley Stadium as a neutral venue since it opened in 2007. That is the most of such victories at any side in their time at the National Stadium, overtaking Chelsea, who had 14. Arsenal now have lost each of their last 4 League Cup finals, and it is now the outright longest run of finals without taking home the trophy by any side in the competition's history. Pep won the League Cup for the 5th time. It is the most of any manager in the competition's history, overtaking Brian Clough, Alex Ferguson, and Jose Mourinho. At 21 years and 1 day, Nico O'Reilly is the 3rd youngest player ever to score a brace in a League Cup final after Wayne Rooney, who was 20 and 125 days, and Ronnie Whelan, who was 20 years and 169 days. Trafford, at 23 years and 163 days, is the youngest English goalkeeper to start a League Cup final at Wembley, since Chris Woods did it for Forest versus Liverpool in 1978, and he was 18 years old in 124 days. Wow, that was pretty young. I don't think that will be beaten unless we get a Buffon-type prodigy. Aston Villa scored through John McGinn, who scored from outside the box, a great curling effort. And it is Aston Villa's 18th goal from outside the box. And it is the most of any team in Europe's Big 5 leagues, 18. Tottenham have won just 30 points from 31 Premier League games this season. That is horrible. That is their joint lowest return after 31 games of a league campaign, along with 1914-1915 when they had 30. Sunderland completed the double over Newcastle, and Eddie Howe is the first ever Newcastle manager to lose both of his first 2 league meetings with Sunderland, while Régis Le Bris is the second Sunderland boss to win his first 2 games against Newcastle after Gus Poyet did it in 2013-2014. At 89:45, Brian Brobbey's winner was the latest ever winning goal between Newcastle and Sunderland in the Premier League. Raul Jimenez has scored all 14 of his Premier League penalties. Only Matt Letizia and Salah and Harry Kane have enjoyed longer scoring runs from the penalty spot in the competition's history, with Letizia having 23, Salah and Kane having 15. Wow, Letizia had 23. That's impressive. Liverpool join a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're the seventh team to join this list, where the reigning champions lose 10 plus games the next season. Bruno Fernandes has created 101 chances in 28 Premier League games this season, the fewest appearances to reach 100 plus by a Man United player in a single campaign on record, ahead of Ryan Giggs. Junior Krupi is the fourth teenager to score home and away against Manchester United in a Premier League campaign. After Nicolas Anelka did it in 98-99, Jermaine Defoe did it in 102, and Matty Longstaff, did it in 1920. The most popular captains this week were Bruno, who's captained by 71%, then Harry Wilson by 13%, and then Gordon by 2.39%. So for those, I guess it wasn't a bad return, but Bruno was the best captain. Joao was the most brought-in player this game week, and he returned 0 points. I'm laughing because if I don't laugh, I cry. Also because I am one of those people who captained him. I mean, not who brought him in. And then on top of him getting 0, he did not even start. I almost cried. And then he comes on and gets his goal disallowed. Painful. Welbeck now has 12 goals this season, and that is his highest ever return in the Premier League. This makes him also the top scoring English-born player in the Premier League this season. So it might be time for him to go to the World Cup. This game week 31 saw the highest number of free hits used in the Premier League, FPL, this season, with 1.3 million people using it. Now, this ranks as the third highest amount of free hits used in one game week. The top is 23-24 in game week 29, and in game week 20-21, in the year 2020-21, in game week 18. So the top is 1.7 million, the second is 1.4, and the third is 1.3, and that was this one. So it seemed like this was universally a very popular decision to use your wildcard. And among those who used their wildcard, Bruno Fernandes was chosen by 93% of them. So the most popular people chosen this game week, Fernandes was chosen by 93%, returned 13 points. Joao Pedro was chosen by 80%, 2 points. Virgil van Dijk, I'm guilty, 3 points. Chosen by 73%. Okay, let me do the other way around. Bruno was chosen by 1.2 million people. Joao Pedro was chosen by 1 million. Virgil van Dijk was chosen by 974,000 people. Igor Thiago was chosen by 965,000, 4 points. Wilson was chosen by 904,000, 9 points. Ekitike was brought in by 843,000, 1 point. Joao was brought in by 664,000, 0 points. That was the most painful. Gordon was brought in by 619,000, 10 points. Senesi brought in by 601,000, 1 point. And Rogers was brought in by 547,000, 6 points. Igor Thiago is the fast forward to rack up 15 defensive contributions this season. This is the most by a forward in any match this season. Second is Jared Bowen, and third is Broja. And they're the only ones who have actually managed to even just cross the barrier of earning defensive contribution points. And speaking of DEFCON points, Onana is the top earner along with Bijol and Soboslai, who all got 18 defensive contribution points. And then Burn and Sangare got 17. And in case you're wondering, Elliot Anderson also got DEFCON points because that's what he does. He had 16. I saw a statistic that said by the end of the season, an FPL season, which usually has about 11 million players, ends up with only 5 million active players. And let me give you some proof of that. The most captained player this game week was, as you guessed it, Haaland. The most selected player, Joao Pedro. The most vice-captained player, Joao Pedro. It's very early, but the top players brought in so far this week: Bruno Fernandes, 78,000. Welbeck, 77,000. Van Hecke, 43,000. Gabriel, 42,000. Gordon, 42,000. Top transfers out: Chalobah, 140,000. Ekitike, 85,000. Bruno, 57,000. Joao Pedro, 54,000. I always laugh every time I see Joao Pedro because I think he's the most seesawed player. People come in, he's hot, they remove him, he's cold. They bring him, he's hot, they will just in and out. And then The fifth most removed player this week is Cole Palmer, 43,000. At 10.6, he's a scam. The average of the game week was 38 points. So if you did 38 or more, well done. The highest points this week were 109. And this manager used their triple captain. And of course, you know they captained, or rather triple captain, Bruno. So in goal, they had Pickford, who had 7. Senesi had 1. Konsa had 6. Williams had 15. Morgan Gibbs-White, 8. Bruno Fernandes, 39. Soboslai, 3. Wilson, 9. Ekitike, 1. Thiago, 4. And then coming off the bench, oh my goodness, was Beto, who gave 16. The team is called Halil FC. Congratulations to you. 109 points. That is the highest points gotten this week. And also something quite impressive is that they did not use a wild card or anything like that. Just 0 transfers. That was just their team. It's like they had been made for this day. In our group, Kojo Danso, manager of 2 thumbs up, because I believe Kojo Danso has 2 teams in our league. Anyway, Kojo Danso got 89 points. They also did not lose any points, just made 2 transfers. Well done. They had been planning. Dubravka in goal, 2 points. Collins, 6. Van Hecker, 4. Murillo, 8. Wilson, 9. Rogers, 6. Captain Gibbs, interesting, 16. Bruno Fernandes, 13. Watkins, 9. Welbeck, 12. Thiago, 4. That's a very balanced team. And that's how they got 89 points. It seems rather simple, right? It feels like the highest 89 I've seen from the most average squad I've ever seen. Escobar Season, 2nd with 79 points. Stevie G, 75 points. Jeffrey Jeremy, 72 points. And in 5th, we have a 3-way tie with Emmanuel Obuya, Skyscraper, and Mood Akil Hazmi, 71 points apiece. When it comes to the other side, of course, you know this team is inactive. 10 points. Ayodele Oladuni. Raya, 0. Ruben Diaz, 0. Gabriel Captain, 0. Tarkowski, 6. Saka, 0. Gakpo, 2. Semenyo Vice Captain, 0. Salah, 0. Clivert, 0. Charlison, 2. Mateta, 0. And of course on the bench, all zeros. So of course, when you're inactive, just like I was saying earlier, it's days like this which really punish you. Moses Moshiri and Okoth Alphonse tied for 11. Hafsa Yusuf, 4th, 15 points. And then for 5th from bottom in terms of point achievement this week, Angulanayo, Dejan Saveski, and Panyako Nyerere, 17 points. The most points lost on the bench this week belong to Joe Mbogwa. They had 22 points on the bench, and that is painful because, as you've heard, the lowest was 10. So on the bench, they had Pickford just like me. Then they had Rogers, who had 6, Keane, who had 8, and Senesi, who had 1. And that's how they had 22 points on the bench. They had 69 points, so they used their free hit really well. Second most points on the bench belongs to El Flick, who had 19 points on the bench. Fahmi, Zulkifly, and Emmanuel Obuya tied again, 17 points on the bench. And then you have Abdul Malik Alouai Sachivini tied for 5th with 16 points on the bench. I had 15 points on the bench, and that really stung for me, especially when Tiao and Sesko got 0. Kojo Danso had the team with the most goal scorers. That makes sense. 6 goals were scored by people on his team. The team with the best midfield belongs to yours truly. My midfield delivered 54 points this week. I got 68, so that tells you everywhere else I did nothing. Team with the best defense belongs to Kiggs, whose defense had 35 points. Well done to you. Also well done to me. It's not too often I get to say that one here. When it comes to the most transfers made, it seemed like a bunch of people were preparing for this, those who did not have the free hit. And they had racked up 4 free transfers, and they used them well. Leon Mortier, Randy Augusta, Johnny Watson, Walal Somali, Ami Chief, Dennis Odera, Keith Njagi, Sam Loud, Victor Nyabola, Mike Mbogwa, all were tied for first with 4 transfers made. When it comes to the best transfer outcome, James Durango was 19 points better off by the decisions they made. David Moy, Akhil Hazmi, and Emmanuel were tied with 17 points apiece. Well done. And in fifth place was Skyscraper, 16 points better by the transfers they made. On the other side of that equation, Keith Njagi lost 12 points by making the transfers that were made. Matthew Jr. lost 11. Abel Kibunja lost 10. Theo Mikisi lost 9. Dennis Oderian, Abrim, and Ibrahim Ali lost 8 points by making transfers. The highest team value belongs to Mike's team, managed by Mike Mbogwa. They are valued at 106.7. The lowest team value for another week is Eddie Olang, but this time Anthony Koila has joined him, and their teams are valued at 96.7. When it comes to the highest change in team value, Mike's team, managed by Mike Mbogwa, has added 0.5 to the team value. On the other end, Ojo Danso and Leon Mortier have lost 0.9 to their team value. When it comes to the biggest differentials this week, Nico Williams was the biggest differential, chosen by 1%, returning 15 points. Kiggs, well done. Number 2 was King from Fulham, chosen by 1% and returned 13 points. Number 4 was Welbeck, owned by 4%, returned 12 points. And number 5 was McGinn. So interesting. McGinn, who was owned by 1% and returned 10 points as well. When it comes to the overall rank riser, Escobar's season jumped 987,000 positions globally this week. When it comes the other way, Joao and Debe dropped 683,000 points this week. When it comes to a streak of green arrows, Aaron Muindi has been rising for 12 weeks. Well done to you. Keep it up. Kojo Danso, you see? No, this is Kojo Danso's other team. And Eddie Olang have been on the decline for 8 weeks in a row. When it comes to our league, Kojo Danso, manager 2 thumbs up, is the highest riser, jumping 18 positions. So you see, one team is doing nothing, another team is doing well. When it comes to the league rank dropper, Mr. Architect Sadiq Suleiman has dropped 23 positions. He's not having a good season. Last season was much better for him. When it comes to captain choices, the most popular captain this week was not Haaland. Thank you guys for being active. But second most was Haaland, 33. And so most of those are dead teams. Ekitike, 15 points. I am sorry to all of you. Igo Thiago, 14 people chose him as captain. Joao Pedro, 13. Wilson, 9 people chose as captain. Semenyo, 9 other dead teams. Gyökeres, 4 other dead teams. Salah, 3 other dead teams. Raul Jimenez, 3. Palmer, 3. Watkins, 3. Saka, 3. Bowen, 2. Wood, dead teams. 2. Gordon, 2. Well done, guys. Bumo, 2. Voltemada, Richarlison, Hudson-Odoi, Gibbs-White, Grealish, Foden, Gakpo, Iwobi, Evan-Nilsson, Rogers, Rice, and Gabriel were chosen by one manager apiece. When it comes to our league table, Anul Midunga is really hanging in there at the top. 60 points. He got 19-13. In number 2 is Alan Mushangi, 1881 points. So 20, 33, 34 points. Leon Mortier, 1876 points in number 3. Franklin Asiema jumps up to number 4 with 1860 points. Papi Chulo, number 5, 1850 points. John Mongemi jumps to number 6 with 1834 points. Amos Langat jumps to 7th with 1822 points. Teddy Mwalo jumps to number 8, or rather stays at number 8 with 1816 points. Randy Augusta jumps up to number 9 with 1813 points. And Charles Cadavillis drops to number 10 with 62 points. The gap of 100 between number 1 with 913 to 1813 is number 1 to number 9. So it seems like the winner is coming out of those top 9. At the other end of the table, Mr. Bruce Lee Abungana, 402 points. Marcos Peters, 475 points. Mark Moura, 883 points. Murungai Manyara, 1098 points. Mike's team, managed by Mike Mbugua, 5th from bottom, 1130 points. So you can see that it's not looking great at the bottom of the table. When it comes to number one in the world is still Eric Ibsen. Number 1, 2, 3, 4 have not changed. Eric Ibsen has 2061 points. Ian Foster is number 2 with 2050 points. Ted Gondwe, 2040 points in number 3. And number 4 is Luca Ortulan, 2037. We've talked about Luca in the past. So, with 2061 points, what was the team? Ibsen only made 2 transfers. Seems like Ibsen was planning for this for a while. He had 64 points in goal, Pickford 7, Tiao 0, Virgil van Dijk 3, Hill -1, captained Bruno for 26 points, Wilson 9, Gordon 10, Szoboszlai 3, Ekitike 1, Thiago 4, Joao Pedro 2. And that is how they got 64 points. Now, at this juncture, it is important to note that Premier League football resumes on the 10th of April. So it's about 17 days away, nearly 2 weeks. So I will do a podcast closer to that day. Why? Because the international break is upon us. So we're returning from a blank game week into an international break, and that will bring its own challenges. So I would encourage you all not to make any rash decisions in case your players have been called up and in case they get injured. So I will do another podcast closer to the date. Until then, I hope you remain well and enjoy the break. Think about how you're going to approach the few remaining weeks of the Premier League. Until then, have a great day and great week. Bye.